I'm Jack Jersawitz. Oh, turn my mic on. Now we're okay. I just thought about that. I don't know why oh boy, that's yellow as hell. Is it the monitor or what? Doesn't matter. We don't care. It can be as yellow as it wants to be. That's the way it is sometimes. This, of course, is Brainstorms. I'm Jack Jersawitz, and we've been running around here setting up for a possible crowd, only the crowd hasn't materialized because there was an incident at Georgia State, and I was there last night during a showing of a film and a discussion about the incident, and I invited everybody and also emailed everybody to come and talk about it here, because in the past, that's what we've done. And when I say past, I'm talking about 1992, when there was a strike that shut down Georgia State University, a student strike, because of the racist antics of one of the fraternities. Well, I've talked to people about this fraternity today, and they have a reputation for this all across the country. They have no idea about how to behave, how to be human, how to be decent, and sooner or later they always pull this stunt. This is one of the incidents that was involved in the strike last year, not last year, in 1992. In 1992, of course, it was derogatory racist markings on a waste can, and as well things like blackface parties and stuff of that sort that led to the strike when the university did nothing about it. This time, of course, it was a party called Straight Outta Compton, in which everybody came in blackface and carried on as though they were stereotypes. Of course, stereotypes of real human beings who don't behave like people who are carrying on like the stereotypes are supposed to carry on. Excuse me a second, let me get a sip. And last night, because of the use of blackface at this party, and I'm talking about Phi Kappa Alpha, otherwise known as the Pikes, who have a reputation for this kind of shit, excuse the language, all the way across the country, from what I've been able to determine, talking to various people who have gone to various universities. They held this party called Straight Outta Compton. You may not know, Compton is a town right next to Los Angeles in California, and it is at this point, I believe, predominantly a black city. When I lived there a great many years ago, probably 40 or 50 years ago, something like that, not 50, not that long, about 40, it was, as far as I know, a mixed area, and it was an area where there was a steel mill. Whether the mill is still there, I don't know. But nonetheless, this party was entitled Straight Outta Compton, and they invited people to come dressed in blackface, amongst other things. So there was this meeting last night in which this was discussed, and I invited everybody, because this is what we did in 1992 when the strike was on, when the university didn't get it through their fat heads that they had to do something about that kind of behavior. I invited everybody from the university, then as now, Black Student Alliance people, Sankofa Society, so on and so forth. And we had quite I think 2 or 3 shows that we did on the subject. Tonight, nobody has yet showed. They may show up late. If they do, they'll walk right in and pick up a mic. Place is set up for them. And we will discuss this further. I want to say this much as far as this is concerned. On Thursday, at Georgia State University, in the ballroom of the Student Center, there will be a, quote, community dialogue at which the president of Georgia State University, I understand, will be present and participate. We shall see what he has to say. He has said very little about the protests so far, and the administration at GSU isn't as obviously racist, but when you dig into their stuff, you find out that the university administration, and I'm talking about the tops, are equally as racist as these pikes, these Pi Kappa Alpha types. You dig into little things like the Saturday school for leaders and scholars for, I believe, elementary and middle school kids. And when you go look at these kids coming down on Saturday, you find that they're predominantly white. And in a city that's predominantly black, one has to sit there and say, well, how come? What's going on here? How are they getting here? What's the process? And isn't that racist? And isn't that a function of the university? When I first went to the university some years ago now, they forced me and others who were not as good at math as we should have been. After all, I had to take a GED test in order to get admission there. They forced me and others, predominantly black again, through no fault of their own, background, the bad schools, so on and so forth, were not as good at math as they should have been at college level. Forced us into, I mean, it would have been okay to make us take a normal algebra course to improve our algebra, a remedial course, but what they did was force us into a experimental course, the new math stuff, and I, of course, as I stay on top of stuff like that, recognized what I was being pushed into, knew it was worthless, and protested, and they said, oh, it has nothing to do with this new math, it's not experimental, it has nothing to do with a grant from the federal government to do this kind of stuff. And I said, oh yeah, because I had inside information and knew better. And when I went and dug out, as always, we do it here, we do it everywhere, the records of the university, the grant records of the university, of course it was working under an NFS grant, National Science Foundation grant. The people who said they had nothing at all to do with this experimental program were indeed named as parties to this experiment. And so they were taking a predominantly black group of students who, again, through no fault of their own, were not as good at math as they should have been. I wasn't as good at math as I should have been. And forcing them into an experimental program and not admitting to the experimental nature of it, nor allowing them to opt out into a normal remedial program. I consider that kind of behavior racist as well. So Thursday, and you all ought to come, you all ought to show up, at 12, from 12 to 2 p.m. in the Student Center ballroom, there will be this discussion with the administration. Lord Patton, actually President Patton, is going to be there and is going to deal with the issue with the students. And I know Mr. Patton. I doubt that anybody will get a straight word out of him. But everybody ought to go. You out there in television land, if you have kids in GSU, if you're going to have children in GSU, if you're a student and may end up in GSU, and if you're just a plain old citizen, it's an important issue that you should attend to and raise bloody hell about the university letting that kind of stuff go on at all, or any of the other issues that I may have raised or you may know about. Certainly the thing to do. That's 12 to 2 p.m. in the Student Center ballroom tomorrow, March 4th. Be there. I think we may be there as well with a camera. That kind of stuff has to be dealt with. That's right, it's a community dialogue event with President Patton. Well, let's see how much dialogue Mr. Patton offers. If people walk in and want to join this show and talk about this issue, we're sitting here waiting for them. My word to them was, get here at 5:30 if you can. We go live at 6. But if you get here a little later, that's okay. We're informal here. You just walk in. Let's have a look at the electronic intifada and electronic Iraq. Oh, we got a phone call. Good evening. You're on Brainstorms.
Hi, Jack. How you doing?
Okay, how are you?
Fine, thank you. You had mentioned this incident took place when?
In the last few days. I'm not quite sure when.
University, neither university or President Patton has come out and with anything. They haven't come out and said,
well,
this fraternity is going to be suspended or something, or that there's action going to be taken. This is
the dean of students was asked to take action on it, and because it comes under the GSU Code of Conduct, discriminatory harassment, and let's see what it says. And this, I guess, is a quote of the dean of students in determining whether or not an act constitutes harassment. I don't know whether this is a quote from the book, but essentially my understanding was that there was no immediate threat to anybody, and therefore they would take it under advisement and deal with it in due course. Of course, how can you say that racist acts, racist words, racist behavior is not a threat unless you happen to be white, like the dean of students, and can't have the slightest idea how threatened folks can be about that kind of thing if they don't happen to be white. But that's where it's at the moment.
I just find it hard to believe that they didn't come right off the bat as soon as they were made aware of it and make some kind of official denunciation of what happened. And I go to Georgia State, and I hadn't even heard about it.
Wow.
I haven't heard anything about it.
If you pay attention, you'll see that Georgia State's a racist university.
All right, well, thank you, Jack.
You're welcome. And I know that lots of folks will disagree with that statement, but I've been going there for 4 or 5 years now, and I can tell you it's very rarely as overt and open as this straight out of Compton party, but it's there. There's no question. If you're at all sensitive to the issue, at all paying attention, it's there. GSU, like probably most universities run by the state, is racist. There's no question. Let's go to the electronic intifada. And let's see. We are dealing, of course, today and the last few days. We haven't read this material here on camera and on this show. We've dealt with it in the early afternoon show. And by the way, for those of you who get to a TV set at noon, I do a show Tuesday through Friday at 12 noon, in which we do short news pieces and short discussion of those news pieces. And we took the question up there, but if you've been reading the newspapers, you know that President Aristide of Haiti was kidnapped and hauled off to an African country by American military, apparently. And he says, in talking to Maxine Waters of the U.S. Congress, that he's under guard and being controlled. And if I were under those conditions in Africa, in one of the African countries, which one was it? I think it was the Ivory. I'd be very much worried about my safety. If you've been around a while or know your history, you know that under similar circumstances, Mr. Lumumba was murdered in a situation run by the French and the U.S. government. And if I were Mr. Aristide or any of the people that care about him, I'd be very much worried about the situation now. Forced out of office, told that he'd be killed and a lot of other people would be killed if he didn't leave. Put on an airplane and flown for 15 hours to Africa, where he is apparently a captive, no matter what anybody says. And the U.S. government has been vehemently denying that Mr. Aristide was captured or indeed is a captive. Nonetheless, and so this issue, which is noted here in the front page of the Electronic Intifada, looks interesting in that regard, because the headline is Vanunu gives vivid details of Mossad kidnapping. Of course, the Mossad is the Israeli Secret Service, not unknown for kidnappings, murders, and things of that sort. And the headline, well, that's the comment on the front page. The headline is, Israeli nuke whistleblower gives vivid details of Mossad kidnapping. The Jordan Times, dated to today, 3rd of March, 2004. Occupied Jerusalem, and this is AP, outlining vivid details about his abduction by the Mossad spy agency. Israel's most famous nuclear informer wrote in a letter published Tuesday that he was lured by a young woman to agents who drug-bound and shipped him from Rome to Israel. Mordecai Vanunu, and you may remember that name, whose 18-year prison sentence ends in April, recently issued a statement through his brother saying he has no more nuclear secrets to reveal. This is, of course, the young man, then a young man, who revealed the fact to the world that Israel was working on nuclear weapons and had, in fact, achieved some. Excuse me. Mordecai Vanunu, whose 18-year prison sentence ends in April, recently issued a statement through his brother saying he has no more nuclear secrets to reveal. But Israel, citing security concerns, has said it would keep Vanunu under strict supervision, possibly confiscating his passport when he is released from prison on April 21. And he's been kept incommunicado all these years in jail, unable to communicate with the outside world. Vanunu was nabbed by the Mossad in Europe in 1986 after he gave details and photos of Israel's top-secret nuclear plant in the Negev desert to the Sunday Times of London. You might ask the question, the United States government says it's opposed to the spread of nuclear weapons. It's opposed to they're being held by countries in the Middle East, so on and so forth. Their reason, of course, one of their reasons, of course, for attacking Iraq, at least on the surface. And yet, all these years, Israel has worked on and developed nuclear weapons, no doubt with American dollars, and nothing has been said. The U.S. government has never said a word. Vanunu, who did say a word, who did go public with it, was thrown into prison for 18 years. And if I know anything about the Israeli government, it's entirely possible that they won't release him. They'll hold him. And they'll hold him without law, without purpose, without care, simply as punishment, because that's the way those folks are. The Zionist movement is one of the most brutal movements on the face of the earth, as you know if you follow anything that goes on in Palestine. And they are not above being brutal to their own people. Let's tell the history since we're talking about it. The Zionist movement during the Second World War made a deal with the Nazis, with the Germans, through Hitler's agent Eichmann, Adolf Eichmann, to obtain the release of less than 2,000 rich Jews in Hungary, I believe it was, allowing them to go to Palestine, in exchange for which they helped ship off hundreds of thousands of Jews to the gas chambers, telling them they were going to a nice place. If you ever wondered why, except for Warsaw and possibly one other incident, there was not an outbreak against what was being done to the Jews, that is a largely working-class population, like most European populations, and they did not revolt except for Warsaw. And if you ever wondered why, it's because they were being gulled. because they're being lied to, and they're being lied to by the Zionist movement. And anybody that wants to challenge that little set of facts, it's a matter of record in the courts in Jerusalem, where a trial was held, a libel trial, and the facts were very clearly laid out in that trial. I don't have the site, though I don't know how you'd look it up here or whether the volumes are available to look it up here, but it's pretty well known fact that at this trial, all of it was laid out in black and white, and the Zionist movement actually assisted in the Holocaust against the Jewish people in Europe in order to get a few rich Jews out so that they could build a Zionist state in Palestine. So, don't be surprised at anything that goes on. If they hold Vanunu, that won't be surprising. That's the nature of the Zionist state. It was unclear. We're back to the letter that was released. It was unclear how the letter, first shown on Israel's Channel 2 TV late Monday and republished in the Mariv Daily on Tuesday, passed through prison censorship. Through prison censorship. That's a good point. Wonder how he got it out. The Israeli Defense Ministry officials were not immediately available to comment. It is widely believed, largely based on photographs Vanunu provided the British newspaper, that Israel has the sixth largest stockpile of nuclear weapons in the world. The CIA recently estimated Israel has between 200 to 400 atomic weapons. Israel has an official policy of nuclear ambiguity, saying only that it will not be the first to introduce nuclear weapons to the Middle East. Clearly a threat. In the letter, Vanunu said he could not concede or fold, regret or apologize, be deaf or shut up. Vanunu wrote that on September 24, 1986, he first met an American woman in Leicester Square in London. 6 days later, he wrote, she persuaded him to come with her to Rome to visit her sister. In 1988, the Sunday Times reported that American-born Cheryl Bentoff, 27, was a Mossad agent who persuaded Vanunu to come with her to Rome. The Times said her parents lived in Orlando, Florida, and that Bentoff had moved to Israel as a teenager. In his letter, Vanunu said he and the American woman flew to Rome on a British Airways flight. A man who identified himself as an Italian friend of the woman's sister met them at the airport, Vanunu wrote. The Italian man drove them in a private car to an apartment outside Rome, he wrote. As soon as I entered the apartment, I was attacked by two men who then drugged me with needles, Vanunu wrote in Hebrew. So, don't be surprised. The Israeli state, the Zionist state of Israel, who act, as a matter of fact, as the agents of the U.S. imperialism, because that's their role in the Middle East. If you ever wondered why this government pours so much money into their coffers, it's because they are a marker. They are the agent of U.S. imperialism in the Middle East. And they carried out the kidnapping then. Don't be surprised at the kidnapping carried out of Aristide just the other day, 2 or 3 days ago, which of course follows on a short while after the kidnapping of Chavez in Venezuela, who was kidnapped, and then because of the uprising in the streets, they were forced to bring him back. U.S. government, of course, always denies such behavior, but such behavior is criminal and ought to be prosecuted. But that's the way it is. Let's see what else we have here. You want to talk about, this is old hat, of course, but it goes on and on and on. 3 Palestinians wounded as Israelis open fire on stone throwers. And this is the French press agency, 3rd of March, 2004. Jenin, West Bank, March 3rd. Consider trying to live under the conditions that the Palestinians are forced to live under. An occupied people, and faced with the murderers of the Israeli government, of the Zionist government of Israel. Just think about these kind of conditions. Jenin, West Bank, March 3. 3 Palestinians were moderately wounded on Wednesday when Israeli troops opened fire on stone throwers in the northern West Bank, Palestinian medical and security sources said. The 3, all in their 20s, were among a group lobbing stones at an Israeli army patrol that had taken over a house in the Tulkarm refugee camp, they said. Earlier, a Palestinian militant from the radical Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade was shot dead by troops who moved in mass into the camp before dawn. During the operation, they arrested 7 other Palestinians in the camp, the sources said. Well, if you want the model for what's going down in Iraq, for what U.S. troops are doing in Iraq, you look to Israel. Very much similar to the relationship between the Franco rebellion in Spain back at the beginning of the Second World War, or just before the Second World War, and the Nazis in Germany who aided and assisted them. The testing of tactics, the operation of tactics, the Israelis, of course, have shown the way to the U.S. military and the U.S. military's behavior in Iraq in many instances. For instance, the taking of captives, the relatives of people that they are looking for, and holding them until these people come forward. Not unheard of in Israel, and the U.S. government, I can't remember in my lifetime, and I've been around a while, ever behaving that way before. So they took a lesson from the Israeli government, from the Zionist government, from this murderous government, racist government in Israel, and they've taken other lessons from them. Excuse me a second, guys. Leave it. No, leave it. Johnny, what's he taking? That's my mic cable. Or is it? No, it's his. But it's checked out to me. This is one of the so-called managers around here who comes in here late, Jamie, late in the evening, although we close at midnight, and then has to play around with the equipment when some of the equipment is missing, as a matter of fact. Yeah. And that's the way it goes around here, because this management doesn't care about public access. They just do as they please. Let's go on. There goes the phone. Good evening, you're on Brainstorms.
Yes, Mr. Jersawitz.
Yes.
I talked to you about biolock in Vietnam, 1968, when Black Rifle Squad was destroyed.
Yeah.
Bunker 21. I live on Brookline Street.
Uh-huh.
I saw you down the street from me. Now, I'm not going to ask you what you were doing down there. I saw you down there.
Where was this?
I respect you.
Thank you.
I do. You have balls. You do.
That's a New York term.
I'm a Southern man. I'm a combat-infantry soldier. Purple Heart, all that stuff, you know. They're finna bring back the draft. I saw...
That's right.
Yeah.
And you've heard me say it here.
And I didn't hear you say that. I wish I could have.
I have. And people said, oh, no.
No, I listen to you.
And people say, oh, no, that's not going to happen.
Because you're one of the clearest guys to talk. That tell the people what's going on.
Well, all I do is look at the facts.
Yeah, I know. You know what? The doctors that make the $150,000 or $350,000 a year, that's sick. It should be free. All medical, free. Housing, free. It should be. But it's sick that it's not.
You know, I can't blame the doctors for what they make. But I can say that if that exists, it's because we don't have what we should have, which is a nationalized health system.
And about these children, these families, the family thing, I agree with that, because anyone took care of everyone. The people just don't see it. Just follow one line. And if they studied enough and prayed enough, and I do believe in God. You know you don't.
You're entitled.
Well, you know, common sense should tell them that you must help one another, you know, and love one another, just like you love the Father, and love one another. You know, that's just common sense. And even if you don't see it, now I see it.
Let me suggest that it isn't common sense. Let me suggest that the way we treat each other is a product of the way in which we make our existence. You and I and every other worker out here are forced daily into competition against each other.
Just love one another because you're human beings.
I understand. But this society and this economic system forces us daily into competition with each other for jobs. And that means if somebody will work cheaper than me, they're going to work cheaper than me in order to get the job. We compete against each other every day. And so as a result, unless we become trade unionists, of course.
Got to be an Aunt Susie, Uncle Tom. I know that. And it hurt me. I can never understand that. But even though I was a combat soldier, you know, in an army and everything, you know, I could never understand that. And I saw people getting killed. The army will kill you. They will kill you. That's right. And I've seen it done, and the people know that that the lifers, they know that they will kill you. You know, if you get out of line. And all law enforcement know that too. Mm-hmm. The land, they'll kill you. Mm-hmm. But if you are really a Christian and you believe in Christ and the Father, you know, you will see what's going on. And you just read the Bible. Now, I know the Bible got the Midrash, all that, a whole lot of stuff in that there. But you got to find out truth for yourself.
But you can see, though, in the last 2 or 3 days, that a gentleman that was a head of state in Haiti, who was a priest...
Aristide. And you know what?
Who believed in the Bible...
Bin Laden bottled up in Yemen. Heard that today? Hey, that's something, man.
Well, but he spoke the language you're saying that people should speak.
I'm talking about Bin Laden. They're supposed to have him bottled up in Yemen.
Oh, well, I don't know about that. But how about Aristide? Aristide spoke as a Christian. He said people should love each other.
They starved him out. They had to starve him out. That's economic.
I understand. But then the question isn't one of speaking nicely, of speaking of peace and love, which, of course, should be the rule. But the question then is, how do you fight this
Love one another. That's how I loved you.
Yeah, but how do you fight this monster that runs the U.S.
With all your heart and soul and mind.
But how do you fight the monster that runs this government?
Because Satan still rules the world.
And so
money.
And so they have to.
So that it's simple.
But they have to be brought down, don't they? And loving them ain't going to bring them down.
Only one way you can bring them down. That's the spirituality. That's the strength of God, and He has the strength. I can see that a hurricane can go through a junkyard and come out with a typewriter. But I can't see a hurricane going through a junkyard and coming out with man and life.
Well, we ain't going to argue about
You
that.
must realize that it's very improbable that life ever could have existed anywhere in the universe except with bees.
You're about to find out that it exists in other places. They have just found water.
Yes, and it's very impossible for it to exist in other places unless it be through design.
They have just found water.
Through design, brother.
They have just found water on Mars. Let's see whether there's life.
Design. That's old deal.
Okay.
Design.
Okay.
Don't cut me off now.
I'm not cutting you off. But
it's the design and the love of God that He created the universe. I know they mistreat black people. I know that. But it's through design, and you must realize that.
Well, I have no evidence.
Don't need evidence.
I need evidence. You don't convince me by preaching at me.
I'm not preaching at you.
Well, but that's essentially what people try to do.
But let a hurricane go through a junkyard, come out with a typewriter. And life is much more complex than that. Billions and billions and billions times more complex than that. That's it. That's it.
Okay, my friend.
That's that.
Let's let somebody else in, huh?
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's the way it is some days. The gentleman had some interesting things to say, of course, and then he had some things with which I cannot agree. But at any rate, where was I? I was talking about Aristide and his kidnapping, the kidnapping and murder of Lumumba, the kidnapping of Chavez. All of these things tied together. Not to be surprised at, but to understand that none of those gentlemen, as good as they may have been and as good as they wished to be, could deal with the problem. And the problem dealing with the U.S. imperialist regime is one of revolution. And that requires Marxism and a special study and a special way of understanding the motion and development of society. Good evening, you're on Brainstorms.
Good evening.
Hi.
Yeah, and listening to the last young man, he was as serious as all the other people who have their different beliefs, and he's serious. And those people who feel just the opposite of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, they believe just as strongly as he does, and that's what makes religion so dangerous. I'm spirituality. Thank you.
Thank you. I can't quite figure that one out. But against spirituality and against belief is hard fact. And the hard fact is that we live under a government which is not getting better, it's getting worse, given the very serious economic crisis they are facing and their need to control all kinds of factors that go into that economic crisis. And you're seeing the spread of the kind of tactics that you would have thought were old imperialism, but which are now returning as the expression of a regime very much in crisis, and that has no holds on it at all. So it's time to really seriously think about what the answer is. Chavez meant well, means well. Aristide meant well, was forced out, starved out. People say, oh, he fumbled, he didn't do the right thing, that was the cause of his downfall. The cause of the downfall of Aristide, if you can call his kidnapping a downfall, was the fact that the country was being starved out. If there's a move against Cuba, and I don't think they're going to pull that one right away, it'll be the same thing. They have attempted to starve Cuba out. The only problem with Cuba is it's a great place for growing food, if nothing else, and so it's hard to starve them out. It's possible to make it difficult for them to get certain kinds of manufactured goods they can't produce there, and other items they can't produce there, but you can't starve the Cubans out because they can grow what they need in order to eat. But in Chavez's case, the value of the oil is what's involved, and no matter how popular he is, and he is very popular, he doesn't have the answer. The answer is that it's not simply a matter of improving conditions in your own state, because the imperialist United States is going to make that very difficult. The problem is organizing throughout Latin America to overturn capitalist regimes and use those the assets of those regimes, not total assets, but use the position, the power of the regimes to organize to overturn the United States government, which means assist in building a revolutionary movement here. Although that problem is predominantly yours and mine. It's not a problem that is solved simply from outside. Of course, the Communist Party in this country was aided and abetted by the Stalinists in the Soviet Union. They got lots and lots of money from them. But the policy of the Soviet regime, that is the Stalinist regime, was not revolutionary. And as a result, what the Communist Party did here was hardly revolutionary. We could go into that in great detail. We won't. The problem is the building of a Marxist revolutionary party here. And that is the answer to all of these countries in terms of preventing of preventing the overthrow of regimes that are relatively decent, want to do good, but don't know what to do in order to ensure their survival and an end to U.S. imperialism. That's not true in Europe, in England. In England, there is a revolutionary party, the Workers' Revolutionary Party, one of the leading parties in the world party of the God, language is gone. The International Committee for the Fourth International, and I would suggest that you go up on web and locate their newspaper, their daily newspaper, the www. You guys got it on screen. You can put it on screen. www. WRP.org. .uk, and somebody will pick that up on screen in a minute. It does exist, I believe, in the saved sections, but who knows where it is. I'm not in love with that system, but nonetheless, let me give it to you again. It's www.WRP.org.uk. There you will find the Workers' Revolutionary Party website and their newspaper Newsline, and it's a daily newspaper, and daily the articles change. What they do is run 3 articles. They run the lead article, they run a feature article, and they run an editorial. And you'll catch from a Marxist point of view, which is what I try to present here, an extensive view of how the struggle is developing against imperialism and capitalism, and especially how it's developing in Britain. But they do more than just look at the working class movement in Britain. They look at the world, and they speak about other issues that impinge on that. So that's where it is. Is it up there? Did you guys get it? Yeah, you sure did. Once again, www.wrp.org.uk. And it's up there, and in a few minutes, switch it back to the phone number so we can get some more phone calls. Hell, I like talking to people. Everybody knows that. Rather do that than sit here and run my mouth, as a matter of fact. Phone number here, 404-892, wrong number, God, 404-873-1349. I've now got all these numbers in my head, and I can't really figure out what the hell's going on. But that's the way it goes. 873-1349. That gets you in here, and we can have a conversation. Let's read another article from the Electronic Intifada. It's entitled "A Bullet, a Teenage Boy in a House That Serves as a Metaphor for Palestine." I just think it's a good idea to get a feel for what is actually going on down there, over there, because the U.S. press dresses it up as best they can. Don't give you a feel for how things actually were. Just as living up north during the 60s didn't give you a feel for how things were down here in the South. You had to come down here as part of the civil rights movement and roll through a town square in a car where people are lining up, black people are lining up trying to get to register to vote, and you pause the car, you reach down on the floorboard and bring up the camera, and no sooner the camera comes into view than a half dozen goons with baseball bats head your way. You sure don't take any pictures under those conditions. You get the hell out of there and get out of there fast, because that was my experience. My experience was, you get a sheriff trying to stop you on the highway, you better be ready to kill the son of a bitch, because he may be trying to kill you. And you have that kind of point of view if, in fact, you're in Mississippi after a friend of yours was found buried in a dam, one of the 3 young men that was found buried in a dam in Mississippi. This is real life as opposed to what you get in the newspapers here. So I like reading these articles because they give you a picture of the actuality. They're written usually by people on the ground who know what's going down. But let's go to the phone first. Good evening, you're on Brainstorms.
Yeah, why are you cussing, man?
Every now and then. It's kind of colorful.
That's not, no, it's
Is that the most important thing to worry about?
Yeah, I told you what happened at Bowlock.
Oh, it's you again. Okay. Every now and then, that's the way it is. He's gone. Some of us worry about stuff like that, some of us don't. This is The Independent, 3rd of March, 2004. That's today. I saw a headline in an Israeli newspaper last week, a shooting, and recognized the name, a photograph, a face. For a moment, I was back in Gaza last summer in the strangest house I have ever visited. It felt as though I had wandered into a Kafka short story, where everything is a warped metaphor for Palestine itself. It was an occupied house. The Israeli army had seized the top 2 floors of Khalil Bashir's home. The house overlooks one of the Israeli settlements built illegally on the Gaza Strip. So far, for 18 months, the army had declared the bedrooms and bathroom of the Bashir house to be a closed military zone. Every day, the soldiers change shift by climbing a ladder at the back of the house. As you sit in his front room, you can hear them walking about upstairs. Let me get a sip. I'll read the article, then get to the phone. I know, Khalil Bashir says politely, it is like a bad television comedy. But this is true. They are there. Bashir, his wife, and his 8 children now all have to sleep in a tiny room on the ground floor. It has no beds. They are under a strict curfew. After sundown, they cannot leave this room. They have been told that if they do, they will be shot. This is not the home of a Hamas activist, a man secretly plotting the murder of Jewish children. Khalil is a local headmaster, and he led the area's Jewish-Arab dialogue group until the Intifada made it impossible for them to continue. The settlers know that we are civilians and good neighbors. We would never let any militants use our house for an attack, ever, Khalil explains. As chickens cluck at our feet, he continues in his warm, soft voice, they will never succeed in making me hate them. We are better than that. To hate is inhuman. In spite of everything, I love them and reach out the hand of peace. We are destined to live together. Nobody will expel anybody else. We are all children of Abraham. Looking back, there were harbingers of the event that pushed Khalil Bashir into the headlines. 2 years ago, while he was marking his school papers, a missile crashed into his study and brought the ceiling crashing down on his head. He was hospitalized with serious head injuries. Yes, death has knocked on our door more than once, Khalil explains, but we refuse to leave simply because we love our house. Last week, a United Nations delegation arrived to visit the Bashirs. As Khalil's 14-year-old son, Yusuf, a sweet boy who served me coffee and talked about his schoolwork, led the UN delegates back to their car from the house, he was shot in the back by an Israeli soldier. His spinal artery was cut immediately. The bullet was 1 millimeter away from his spinal cord. Thanks to that, he will live. God's protection was more powerful than the hatred of the bullets, for it prevented death from taking Yusuf, Khalil now says. He issued an immediate appeal for no Palestinians to retaliate in any way. We are all human, he says, and I pray I am the last father on either side who suffers, and Yusuf will be the last son who gets hurt. Yusuf's story is not unusual. All Palestinians throughout Gaza and the West Bank live with lockdowns and curfews, and in the midst of violent settlers who have stolen Palestinian land. Perhaps the most horrible truth is that Yusuf took a bullet that was enforcing an occupation that even Ariel Sharon agrees cannot continue. The Likud Prime Minister said last month, I am working on the assumption that in the future there will be no Jews in Gaza. It is my intention to carry out the evacuation. Sorry, a relocation of settlements that causes problems and of places we will not hold on to anyway in a final settlement, like the Gaza settlements. This is a long article, isn't it? Yeah. But what it's saying essentially is that despite the terrible conditions of the Palestinians that are enforced by the Israeli government, by the Zionist government, there are people like Khalil and our caller of a few minutes ago who preach peace and love in the face of murder and hatred. And I hate to tell you guys that you don't have to hate, but you have to act militarily. You have to act with force against regimes that act with force. There is no other answer to that kind of behavior. And that is what justifies the use of force. That is what will justify a revolution here in this country that will bring down this government or the one that may follow it, put them on trial, and probably hang them after trial, after due process, for all the CIA and Secret Service and all the others who may be out there listening. But that's what's necessary. It's not a question of being good guys. It's not a question of loving folks. It's a question of doing what's necessary. And what's necessary in dealing with this kind of horror that the article reflects is violence in defense. That's what was necessary and has been necessary under many conditions here in this country. And there have been instances where that has been adequately used very well in defense of folks here against racism and other things. Good afternoon. You're on Brainstorms. You were on Brainstorms. Where'd they go? Hello? Yeah, what's wrong with your phone, man?
This is the guy that talk about preaching love.
Ah, well, I can't hear you. That's our friend wants to call back about love again. I'm sorry. Facts are facts. You cannot oppose the man that comes at you with guns, with bombs, with all of the things that the Israelis come at, the Zionist Israelis come at the population there, the Palestinians. The only answer to that is organization and revolution. I'm not saying that terrorism is necessarily the best tactic, but certainly the organization of a revolutionary party, not just of Palestinians, but of the Israelis, of the Israeli working class, many of whom do know what a brutal government they live under, to bring down that government and put on trial and hang folks like Sharon, Butcher Sharon, as he's known in Palestine, is the only answer. Love and peace and so on can only follow, unfortunately, that kind of a resolution of the problem. We have about 6 minutes. Oh, there's the phone. Well, that was the phone. Yeah, that's about what I figured. 5 minutes. Less than 4, huh? That's the way it goes. Let me promo again the thing on Thursday, tomorrow, at Georgia State University, a community dialogue event. I hate that kind of language. I hate language that says you can have a polite discussion with an administration that allows the kind of racism it does on that campus, or that itself practices racism on that campus. Community dialogue. What they ought to be doing is running Patton and Company out, running out any administration that will tolerate some of the stuff that goes on, running out any administration that will raise fees to the students rather than fighting the government to reduce fees, not to raise them because the government is in trouble financially. But it's a community dialogue having to do with the Pi Kappa Alpha Blackface Party straight out of Compton. It's tomorrow, Thursday, 12 to 2 p.m. in the Student Center Ballroom on the GSU campus. Show up and let Mr. Patton know that not many of us are going to tolerate that kind of behavior, nor tolerate his relatively benign response to it. Maybe Mr. Patton requires another strike and another closing down of the university to get the point home, or maybe something else. But that's going to be a necessary business. So we will probably be there tomorrow with camera and tape it. Maybe bring some of the tape back here to show you. But I'd rather not have to do that. I'd rather you all come out tomorrow and join us at GSU and raise bloody hell about this kind of thing going on at all. Because whether or not there is physical contact or a physical attack, this whole business of blackface, of parading as though you are the stereotype of real living human beings and that human beings are the stereotype, is an outrage. It's a violence done to people in another way, and it should be put to an end. And the regime that supports it by looking the other way most of the time, has to go. I think Mr. Patton has to go. I think anybody else, the dean of students who failed to act, anybody else involved has to go, and that's what should happen. We do a show, as I said before, at 12 noon every day here. We're going to run tape tomorrow because we'll be at GSU, but 12 noon Tuesday through Friday, and we talk about usually out of the local newspaper, various news articles. We offer an opinion. The point of view as here is Marxist, and you're invited to call in with short opinions. What do we got? Seconds, huh? That was a pretty fast 5 minutes, Guy, or 4 minutes.